Grandpa, I'm tired of digging. It's too dang bad.
You guys ever watch the movie Holes with Shia LaBeouf? You guys ever seen that? Yeah, you guys have seen it? Now, have you ever seen it 13 times in a row? You guys know about 40s, like the beers? If you guys don't know 40s, it's like a big bottle of beer. What is 40 ounces in not American? 1.2 liters. Okay, now we would do this thing called Edward 40 hands, where you would duct tape two 40s, one in each hand. So you're basically like becoming a penguin. You don't have use of thumbs or fingers. The only action you can do with your hands is drink 40s. Now, the first time I ever did that was when I was in high school. College. 21. When I was 21 is when I did it, not in high school. That was when I was in college, man. And I was drinking these 40s at this house party, and for some reason the movie Holes was on. I had gotten a little crossfaded, doing a little partaking of indulging in lettuce, indulging in 40s. I was out of my mind. And Holes was on, and I had gotten to the point where the earth spinned a little bit faster than it should, and I needed to sit down. So I took a load off and I sat on this couch, and I just got entranced by Holes. Stanley Yelnats, digging, searching, treasure. I started to feel like I was Stanley Yelnats, dude. And when the grandpa said, "It's too damn bad," I started crying, man. When the little girl said, "Grandpa, I'm tired of digging," and the grandpa said, "It's too damn bad, you gonna keep digging," I started crying, man. And I just kept drinking my 40s, kept watching and watching. By the time the movie ended, the party was already over. Everyone was already gone. I was in this girl's basement watching Holes with two 40s strapped to my hands. I couldn't get them off, and I was sitting next to the remote on the DVD player, and I just smashed my 40 on the remote, and by the grace of God, I was able to hit play, and the movie started again. And I leaned back into the couch, and I thought, oh, thank God. And then I watched Holes again. I still had about maybe 75% of my 40 left in my other hand, so I just started drinking that. And I got to the part where the little girl said, "Grandpa, I'm tired of digging." And the grandpa said, "It's too damn bad, you okay digging?" But this time I laughed, man, because I realized that I'd been sitting there watching Holes for damn near 4 hours. And I kind of realized like the cosmic comedy that was going on in my life at that moment. I got to the end of the movie, and when it ended and I got through the credits again, I just felt like it wasn't enough. Like, you ever go to a buffet and you finish one plate and you're like still hungry? You get another plate and you're like, I'm not hungry, but I could eat more. I don't need it, but I want more. So I started smashing my 40 on the remote again, hoping to God that I can press play, because I can't get these 40s off. I mean, I'm gonna have to wait until morning time. And so I was watching Holes for the third time that night, and at this point I didn't have any 40 left, so I was getting thirsty. So I started searching around the basement. I didn't want to go upstairs because I was too nervous, like if her parents were there, and like I would just have these 40s and I would explain like, why didn't you come up earlier? And I didn't want to say, well, I was watching Holes. So I was just too nervous to go upstairs. I was just waiting for someone to come down and get me. So I started looking for the basement, looking around the basement for something to drink, water, anything, but it needed to be in a container because I couldn't use the sink. And she had a ping pong table, and there was a bunch of cups from they were playing beer pong, and at the edge of the table, I'll never forget this, man, was another 40 already opened with like 2 or 3 sips taken out of it. Now I knew I didn't have much of a shot of getting this 40 in my 40 hands. I would have to use just enough pressure from the bottles to scoop it up, but not too much where it would break. So I smashed it together really hard, raising it up high above, and I got it tilted into my mouth, but I'm pressing a little too hard, and my empty 40 bottle smashed in my fucking hands, cut my hand a little bit, blood and glass and tape and 40s everywhere. I dropped the 40 all over me. I'm covered in beer and blood and tape, and I didn't even have time to process it because from the TV I heard, "Grandpa, I'm tired of digging," and then Grandpa saying back, "That's too damn bad, you gonna keep digging." So I went back to the couch, sat down, covered in beer, and I'm bleeding, but I'm too crossfaded to really realize what's going on. I've just made a mess in this whole basement, man. Broken glass and blood and beer everywhere. And there's just a trail leading back to the couch. And just as the Holes movie finishes up for the third time, I mean, I watched it 3 times that night, so it's morning at this point. And down walks this really big man. At the time, I'll admit, I thought it was God, but it was just the girl's dad. And he comes down and he says, "Hey, are you okay?" And this is when the credits of Holes was going on and the music was playing. And I looked at the TV and I looked back at the dad. I looked at my bloodied hands. And I looked back at the dad and I said, "I'm tired of digging." And he said, "Oh, that's too damn bad, you gonna keep digging. I thought you said it was 13 times. You didn't let me finish, man. After the dad caught my reference, he sat down next to me. He cleaned up my hands. He took me in the bathtub. He washed my whole body for me. He picked out all the glass out of my hands, wrapped them back up in bandages, bathed me, fed me from his teat, nursed me back to health over the next few weeks until I was strong enough to chew food. He would chew it for me. You know, I was so beat up, I couldn't handle food for a while, so he fed me from his body. And every night we would watch Holes. Nothing gay about it, man. It was just pure love, sucking on another man's breast, tasting life from his nipples. Nothing gay about that. That's called a deep friendship, man. Over the next 2 weeks, we watched Holes each night, man. So yeah, we did it about 13 times. And I'll never forget, man, I was about to walk out the door. I looked back at the dad that nursed me back to health, and I said, thank you for everything. And he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, no, thank you, Stanley. I said, that's not my name. He said, I know, Mr. Yelnats. And that's when I realized, man, I hadn't actually been there for 13 weeks. If you spell Stanley backwards, it's Yelnats. Stanley Yelnats, you know, from Holes. Stanley Yelnats, back and forth. I wasn't there for 2 weeks. It had just been a few hours, man, but it felt like forever and it felt like no time at all. So I said, okay, thank you. I guess I am Stanley. Thanks for everything, man. And as I was walking out the door, he says, hey, Stanley. And I said, yeah. He said, yeah, evil. Huh? I said, what? He said, yeah, evil. And I said, huh? He said, spell it backwards. Now get out of here. Now if you spell yeah, evil, that's love you backwards. Never saw that guy again, man. A few days later, his house exploded in a really crazy gas leak. Yeah, it turns out he was siphoning free gas illegally, and his house blew up when he was lighting up a cigarette. Horrible, terrible explosion. But I went back after the explosion. I was digging through the rubble. I don't know why. I don't know what possessed me to go back, but I did go back. And I was digging through the rubble, and I saw something that caught my eye. It was like a box, and the nameplate was kind of scratched up, and I rubbed it with my finger, got all the dirt, and it said Yelnats on it. Stanley Yelnats. The lock was already broken, and I opened the box, and it was 240s. And there was a note, and on the note, it said, dig a little deeper. So I moved the box, and I started digging underneath that box. Digging and digging and digging and digging. It felt like hours. I was getting down to my last little bits of energy, and I said to myself, man, I'm tired of digging. And then my shovel hit something. It was another box. And I opened the box, and there was another note sitting on top, and that note said, well, that's too dang bad. You gonna keep digging. And I kind of laughed to myself, and I moved like a piece of cardboard that was covering something, and it was a bunch of Polaroid pictures from that night. Me in the bathtub getting breastfed by that man. Almost like they were taken from like a hole in the wall, all those Polaroid pictures. And I burned them, and that's when I moved to Japan.
Hey you, who me? Yeah you. Ooh, suck my balls and eat my asshole.